Well, a warm welcome to today's talk, Thursday the 7th of September. Now, today's material is deeply unpleasant, but I do feel it needs to be addressed. It's a massive global health concern, and I would ask you to try and stick with it. Now, it's based on this information from here. This is the World Council for Health, and this is their article based on this policy brief, action on a call to action and policy brief on human trafficking. Now, I was just simply taken aback by the scale of this. Now, I am using mostly the World Council for Health website, but I did go back and check on all the primary sources that we're using, and they are from reputable government agencies, and we'll look at some of those as we go along. Now, check it out for yourself. That's the website. Download it, free download there. Human trafficking in human beings, modern slavery, whatever you want to call it, affects all age groups. Sexual exploitation is 66% of the whatever you want to call it, the movement, the trade, the market. So it's mostly for sexual exploitation, but also for labour and servitude, and also for organ and blood removal. They also come into it. Exponentially growing worldwide. On the internet especially, trafficking of children for online commercial sexual exploitation, videos and photos. I'm not quite sure what I'll get tripped up on the algorithm here, so we won't say too many of these words, but I think you can read that for yourself. This includes toddlers. Okay, now I'm going to be using information, as I say, from quite a few websites. I'm just going to show you a few of them now, rather than clicking back and forward to them all the time. But we've got information here from the Human Trafficking Department, Homeland Security in the United States. United Nations, 50 million people in modern day slavery, sex trafficking and HIV AIDS from the American Bar Association. This is the Canadian group, I think, National Centre for Missing and Exploited Children. No, that's an American one, US one. This is the Canadian one here. And we've got articles from the press and from the United Nations. So that's the sort of references that I have checked out, and these do check out. This is a very nice piece of scholarship from the World Council of Health. Methods used by these groupings, sometimes national actors, sometimes organised crime, sometimes more opportunistic. So deception, kidnapping, coercion and force, violence and torture, forced to watch abuse, and quite widespread use of drugs, especially in transit. US Department of Homeland Security, they say this. Check out the website for yourself, it's all there. Human trafficking is the fastest growing criminal industry in the world. Annual revenue estimated in 2014, which is 9 years out of date, 150 billion US dollars. We don't have an up-to-date figure. And it's the second largest state and organised crime criminal enterprise in the world after illegal drugs. Particularly vulnerable people are those in poverty, those in abusive family environments, displaced during violence and conflict, which of course we're thinking about now. I've been talking to politicians about the situation in Europe about this recently, which is one of the things that stimulated this talk, but more on that later, not on this video, more on that to come. And people living under corrupt situations, which is, well, some countries corruption is worse than others, but corruption is becoming an increasing global problem, and it's becoming more organised. And it's not me being conspiratorial, but let's stick to the facts. International UN Labour Organization, part of the United Nations. Check out the reference for yourself. This is all written there. I have checked it out. They're saying in 2022, 50 million people, 1 in every 150 people in the world, living in conditions of modern day slavery. Over 12 million are children. Now, sexual exploitation, 6.3 million in situations of forced commercial sexual exploitation on any given day, 2021. We know this has increased, and this is on any given day, so the number of people being abused are significantly greater than that. This number includes 1.7 million children in commercial sexual exploitation, and that's this group here, the International Labour Organization, their 2022 data. Next, we've got some information from the American Bar Association, which has actually done some really good work on this. American Bar Association. Some survivors report having been forced to engage in sexual intercourse with up to 50 perpetrators in a single day. This is not compatible with life over a period of time. This will kill the individuals after months or years of agonising suffering. Children trafficked for sex tourism service about 1,500 customers per year. Last time I remember, there's 365 days in the year, so work it out for yourself. This is abuse on a vile, horrendous scale. More than half of the children involved are under the age of 12. Now, this is from National Centre for Missing and Exploited Children in the States, talking about internet abuse 2019. Again, out of date, but it's what we've got. Nearly 70 million child sexual abuse files, videos or pictures shared all the time. 70 million abuse files. A Canadian Child and a Centre for Child and Health Protection. 78% of child abuse files involve children under the age of 12. This is internet abuse files, videos and pictures. 63% were children under the age of 8. At any given time, there are 750,000 to 1 million perpetrators online searching for these files. So as we speak now, there are 750,000 to 1 million people online looking for abuse, sexual and physical abuse in very unpleasant, vile ways of children. Now, right now, this is going on right now. Going on to forced labour and servitude. This is data from the European Parliament. Over 20 million people involved in this sort of slavery, entrapped in this slavery. Hazard conditions, mines, fields, factories, homes, construction sites. People die of hypothermia. They carry heavy loads exposed to pesticides and other toxins. Work excessive hours, severe weather conditions. Degrading treatment, consistent risk of violent abuse. Tens of thousands become ill, and of course many simply die. National actors, organised crime, also The Guardian. Mars, Nestle and Hershey to face child slavery lawsuit in the United States. Not going to say more on that, but simply quoting that headline from The Guardian. Check it out for yourself. So, problems. National actors, states, organised crime, localised crime, and let's hope there's no corporate involvement in this situation. Organ harvesting and blood. Numbers here are uncertain, but we know this is certainly happening. We're just not sure of the degree. Reports of it are increasing across the world. Medical purposes and ritualistic purposes such as black magic, involving human blood and organs, but perhaps mostly for transplant. So, for example, 2017, Daesh, Islamic State. Now, this is information from these American departments. So, Prevention of Terrorism, Department of Homeland Security, Department of Justice, FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation. So this is all information from these agencies. I have checked it out. Organs from oppressed minorities and prisoners are traded and exploited. In Daesh, the hub went through, I won't mention the country, but there's one particular country the hub, most organs went through. Now, these organs have to be harvested by skilled surgeons and put back in to the recipients by skilled surgeons. Sometimes it's called the red trade. And the idea that doctors are collaborating in this in some parts of the world is just horrendous beyond description, yet this is the case. You can't just rip an organ out and hope for the best. There's very precise procedures for maintaining viability and all sorts of things. Governments and organised crime networks, again, various governments around the world are involved in this. Human trafficking in the United States and Europe. Trafficking for sexual exploitation is the most common type. So, for example, this is from the United Nations office in Vienna. 72% of detected survivors are in North America. With the market forces prostitution driving demand for human trafficking of women and girls. So, of course, it's a huge problem in Europe as well, as we're going to come on to. This is the National Institutes of Justice. Studies find that up to 80% of samples of women and girls serving as prostitutes, have been coerced or forced to engage in prostitution by pimps and traffickers. And this is in the United States. So users of prostitution in the United States, on any one occasion, there's an 80% chance that the individual has been coerced and exploited. And you don't need me to spell out the words that would be appropriate in that situation. The United States account of nearly 50% of IP addresses engaging in computer-to-computer file sharing images of various forms of child abuse. New York Times, the images are horrific. Children, some just 3 or 4 years old, being sexually abused and in some cases tortured, according to the New York Times. Quoted in the World Council for Health paper. Sometimes followed by travel, this is the United States, followed by travel to Latin America and the Caribbean, where perpetrators from the United States are able to abuse people in these jurisdictions. Europe, no better really. Europe, the majority of trafficking victims are from Bulgaria, Romania, Moldova, Ukraine and Nigeria, brought to Central Europe and Western Europe for exploitation. So we have women and girls and young men, boys, being abused in Central Europe and Western Europe. Of course, Western Europe includes the United Kingdom, from these areas who have no freedom. They have no way of escaping the abuse. Now, World Council for Health, we call for decisive targeted measures to end human trafficking. Of course, these include, but not limited to, the following. Public awareness needs to increase, which is why I've got permission from the World Council of Health for this. There needs to be legislation, there needs to be law enforcement, care of survivors, and we need cultural change. It is not acceptable to look at abuse online in any circumstance. This is just not acceptable. So there we have it. Massive problem of international abuse, largely for sexual exploitation, but for forced labour and for blood and organ harvesting as well. And of course, these often go together. People can be sexually abused as they're being exploited for labour, followed by organ theft. All these things are possible together. Well, I've nothing to say really. I'm just amazed I've got through that. I'll leave that with you. Do look at the original article. Do be informed on this. Do not be naive to the level of depravity going on in the world as people are tortured by this form of ongoing abuse. And I put all the references there. Check it out for yourself. This is too horrible to believe, and yet it is true. And we really need to get things sorted out. Governments around the world should be establishing law and order and things like that, rather than being engaged in less fruitful activities. Read the reports for yourself, and thank you for watching, and I'm going to leave it there.